This is Pramod Nair of the Department of English, the University of Hyderabad. And in the last few sessions, we have been examining post-human subjects and subjectivity, and we have also been interested in looking at ethics and ethical conduct towards the post-human. In this particular session, we will be continuing with this exploration titled Post-Human Subjects and Ethics, by which we mean the ethics of human persons towards robo-carers, robo-sapiens, and artificial beings. Now, you might recall what we have been saying in the previous sessions about more and more functions of care are being managed by and taken care of, outsourced to, if you want to use contemporary jargon, to robots. And children with developmental problems, people with chronic complaints and conditions, people who are aged, are all in need of constant care, which is at a premium now in many countries around the world for the simple reason that there aren't enough nursing personnel. It's also true that in several countries, including Japan and more so the case now, India, the population of elderly people has changed drastically upwards, which means there are more people of the senior citizen category than there used to be, say, 10 to 15 years ago. This is what sometimes is referred to as the graying of populations. And with the graying of populations, as we witnessed during the horrific pandemic, the demands on the medical care system, the demands on nursing care systems are amplified, and these systems are simply unable to take the load, which means alternatives have to be found. And one alternative which is being increasingly examined is the making of robo-carers. And essays that have appeared in Nursing Enquiry and other journals have made the case with several empirical studies that it has been a fairly successful venture to have robo-carers, which means to say that human functions of care are being handed over to artificially created creatures. It has, like I said in the last couple of sessions, its own moral, ethical concerns, and some of these we will address now. What should our attitude be towards such robo-carers? Is it right to create them that way? Are they entitled to or deserving of human rights? Human will, of course, be within quotes. Is it appropriate to say that they are machine manufactured, laboratory manufactured, and even though they perform all the tasks of the human being, they cannot be treated as being on par with humans? Can we say that? Or should we develop entire new ethical frameworks within which to locate these creations or creatures? And we always go back to this text, as you are perhaps aware. It's in fact a kind of archetext, for all of us. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The creature tells Victor Frankenstein, "I should have been your Adam." No? And it's an implicit, but at the same time, a very unusual demand that we are saying. The creature is saying, if I was your Adam and you were my creator, don't you have a responsibility towards me? Isn't it your job to take care of me? Isn't it an obligation, a duty that the creator has towards the created? Which means to say, effectively, the creature, the unnamed creature, often called monster, is asking a very fundamental question. And this fundamental question resonates with us even now when we look at artificial beings. If humans have constructed a creature. It could be a thinking robo made up of plastic and metal, or it can be a creature which is made up of artificially synthesized organic materials, a mixture of materials from biological matter and lab constructed matter, any of those. But if humans have created it, they are effectively the progeny of, the offspring of humans. And what should the ethics be towards such creatures? George Mintz and Michael Cook, whose quote is up on your screen, say that the fundamental problems of how different posthumans express what they are, what dignity they'll be accorded, and what will be the meaning of freedom and how it will be guaranteed is the real question. As in, I just quoted for you Mary Shelley's creature who says, I should have a new Adam. And if you read novels like Ian McEwan's Machines Like Me, it's more or less, and then also, of course, the robo, the humanoid robo is called Adam. And Adam's question is more or less on the same lines. Don't you have any obligation towards me? Isn't it something like a responsibility? But what do the creatures themselves ask? So how the posthumans will express their identities, their subject positions, whether they will be accorded any dignity, and what will be the structure, condition, and meaning of freedom is the question, as George Mintz asked. Let's go to a particular case study. Not a very pleasant one, let me warn you. In 2015, two communication studies scholars, Frog Zeller and David Smith, created what they called a Hitchbot. This was a solar-powered iPhone, but put into a kind of doll-like, robo-like structure and casing. This bot was sent hitchhiking. It walked across Canada, Netherlands, and Germany, and was eventually brought into the United States. And it continued on its walk. Hitchbot met with a lot of friendly humans who were amused, yes, but also in many ways impressed at what was going on. And the point that I want to emphasize here is, if, like George Mintz and others have asked, what will the kind of dignity be given to them? And how will they express themselves? Please keep those in mind. So the people responded in very different ways to this Hitchbot, saying, oh, that's unique. And the Hitchbot had a very large presence on social media, which is, of course, understandable. The purpose of sending this bot out on the walk was to see how humans would interact with the humanoid. Now, admittedly, the robot did not exhibit emotions or rationality, which for many humans would be the test criteria to see if the thing can be treated as a person. Most humans, incidentally, treated it with some kind of charmed curiosity. Many were actually friendly. There was an incident where they took them with it to a wedding, and others took them to a comics convention, a baseball game, and even on a cruise. All to show that the humans did not actually think that this was a very odd thing to do. They did treat the bot, the Hitchbot, as a person. And you might remember what we have said about para persons and allo persons, right? They fulfill all the requirements of a human. They conduct themselves like humans do, and they have expressions which are akin to us, and in many cases they also emote. So if they do all that, then what stops us from considering them as persons? Now, in this case, the bot did not have actually expressions of feeling or vulnerability or danger. But it was a friendly robo. When people responded to it in friendly fashion. So the robo hitchhikes across the United States. But in Philadelphia, it reached a tragic end. Someone tore off Hitchbot's head and broke it up and left it by the wayside. I'm not quite sure it's a commentary on the United States, but having traveled through Germany and Netherlands and large parts of Canada, it only lasted 2 weeks in the United States. And I would recommend that you take a look at the screen where a news item from a newspaper called Intelligencer has been put up. It says, "Innocent hitchhiking robo murdered by America." Now the terms are interesting. For people who looked at this history, this cultural history of the bot hitchhiking across the United States, the treatment that the bot received of people being happy to be with it, talk to it, take it to comics convention, and like I said, even to a wedding, it was a sign that humans are perhaps losing their distrust of artificial beings and robots. Although decidedly anthropomorphic and endearing, it was responsive, it was cute, as several people described it. It was akin to humans in many ways. But for others, they said, what is this strange thing? And the fact that in 2 weeks of entering the United States, it had been destroyed, shows that human distrust of robots is still very high and very strong. Be that as it may, but it's an indication of our interest in what happened, that the title of the newspaper piece says it was innocent and it was murdered. These are terms you affix to incidents where human persons have been exterminated. You don't speak of a chair if a chair has been broken into and mangled. You don't say the chair has been murdered. The term murder is usually used to describe live beings. So you can refer to animals being murdered and humans being murdered, but you don't refer to furniture or a piano or a building being murdered, non-living objects. But the fact that the Intelligencer used the term murder and then used it in conjunction with the word innocent suggests that some people at least saw it as a person. Now, this is an example. What should be the ethics towards such creatures? The related questions that emerge are, how do we classify this humanoid robo? As we have seen, the humanoid robo can be classified as an ersatz moral person, as a substitute human person, or it can be classified as an allo person, a variant model. When artificial beings perform the same functions as all other humans, they can be treated as extensions of the human. Ersatz human beings give the impression of being like human, not identical with, but similar to. And there's a difference here. They're similar, they're not identical. So we think of them as like humans. Now, does that make them deserving of rights, dignity? That's the moot point. The questions, like I just said, of rights and ethics and justice can only be addressed from within a cultural practice where they have been situated. So the questions of ethics towards humanoid robots has two parts. One, should humanoid robots be created with the sole purpose of serving humanity? Two, does it mean that we as humans are creating a new species, a new class of slaves? So two very important questions. Should we create such things, such creatures, whose only job in life is to serve humans? if the answer is yes, are we creating a new race of servants, of slaves, of servitors? These questions are not as direct as we think. They themselves raise two problems. First, if we assume it is all right to create beings who are meant to serve humans, whose capacity, whose capabilities are directed at serving humans, then the fundamental and foundational principles of justice demand that they be allowed to fulfill their capabilities. Now, you do know the capability argument from Amartya Sen, Martha Nussbaum, and several other philosophers, that it is the right of a human to be able to fulfill their capabilities, to use their capabilities to acquire and fulfill their aspirations. So now, if the robo sapiens, if the artificial being has been created with the explicit purpose of serving humans, then doesn't it follow that its capacity to serve humans must be allowed to flourish? If that is their purpose, please note the fact that the basic question is a little prior to this. Should we create such creatures? I'm keeping that aside for the moment, and I'm asking you to consider the fact that once you have created the thing, the Robo Sapiens, and its task, its functionality, its algorithms are all geared towards fulfilling one basic function: to serve humans. Now, if that is the function of the creature, then would it not be wrong, would it not be unjust to deny it that right? Should it not be possible through legal, social, and other apparatuses to make it possible for them to fulfill their aspirations? Or should we say, no, you can't do that. No, that's not acceptable. Now, if a human were to be denied the fulfillment of his or her aspirations and ambitions, if they were not allowed to fulfill all their aspirations to the best of their capabilities, then we will say that's a violation of their rights. It's a violation of their fundamental, foundational capacities. The humanoid robo has been designed to serve us. Having been designed to serve us, its only aspirations are to serve us as humans. Then how can you say that they cannot do so? It's a very thorny question. The second problem: if we believe that we ought not to design such beings in the first place, then creating such beings means that humanity has created conditions for an entire new class of servitude and slavery. And this is a very disturbing, unsettling idea. Let's think about this for a moment or two. We have domesticated animals, right? We have transformed them through the instrumentalization of animals, as we have referred to in the early parts of this particular course when we looked at animal studies. We have transformed them into creatures whose job is to work for humans. This could be in the form of carer and guiding dogs. It could be in the form of pets. It could be in the form of cattle that provide us with various kinds of food products. It could be in the form of cattle used to plow agricultural lands, and so on and so forth. Which is to say that these creatures, animals, have been rendered into instruments of human purpose. We have a purpose. We want to plow the land. You send two bullocks there. We want somebody to ensure that the visually challenged person has someone to guide them across the crowded street. So we have a guide or guiding dog. We have pets that are available for older people to stroke and make sure that they feel all right for the comfort dogs. We have animals that are sent into mines to see if the place is safe, animal sentinels. So we have put animals to multiple kinds of uses, right? Now the question is then, by creating these artificial beings, are we replicating this historical condition? Are we creating a whole new race of beings whose primary job is to serve the human? Is this acceptable? Is it okay to say that we have used animals before and now we are using robots? Now, the counter argument is, oh, but robots do not have feelings. Robots are machine manufactured, they're industry products, and so we do not have the same ethical concerns. Fine. But as you have seen in the last few sessions and today's, if the robot is doing all the things that a human is doing, then the robot is akin to humans, right? They're allo persons. They also have dignity. They also therefore have rights, which means humans have obligations towards them. So once you take that route, you're going to moral crisis, right? When abolitionism began as a huge campaign, they said, we cannot treat some race or other as slave races. You cannot transform human beings into slaves. It's a violation of their fundamental rights, it's a violation of their dignity, and so on and so forth. And it was right, which is what the Human Rights Document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, also says, right? That you cannot make slaves out of humans. Can you make slaves out of mere humans, allo persons? Big question. So, if we are allowing new species of servitude, then we have to think of ethical formulae. So, Steven Peterson, who writes about what's called engineered robo-servitude, ERS, says, the building and employment of non-human persons who desire by design to do tasks humans find unpleasant or inconvenient. And it's possible to design robots from scratch so that they want to serve us in more or less particular ways. In such cases, robots are not slaves since they are not working against their will. Now, this is a very specific spin on the question of robo-servitude, which is a large domain that we are at this point looking at in this module. If the robot has been created with the explicit purpose in its head through the algorithms that it must serve humans, then you cannot call them slaves because they are not slaving or serving against their wishes. Their programmed wishes are that they should serve humans. Now, in the case of the slaves, as in human slaves, the human slaves did not want to be slaves. In the case of the robot, they do not know anything other than to serve humans. So would they be slaves? I mean, would they be classified as slaves? Would they be thought of as slaves? Steven Peterson worries at that question. Now, when you have created them to do certain things, especially unpleasant tasks, then they are programmed to do so, and there is no way you can say that they should not do so. And the point he makes is, once we create such humanoid robots, we have to facilitate the goals, the capacities that the humanoid robot was originally designed with. Right? I mean, there are only two ways around it. That is, we are looking here at a rehumanizing of the machine. A rehumanizing of the machine, which will ensure that its potential is fully realized and its purposes are served. This rehumanization is important because the robot is designed to serve humans. The robot is designed to be a servant or slave to humans. So, if we give it rights, dignity, we have rehumanized the machine. As you can see, there are no easy answers to these philosophical, ethical questions, especially about whether robots are slaves or are they persons. If they are persons, then they deserve human rights, right? If, however, you see them as machines engineered to be slaves, then they are not slaves like human slaves were, because they are programmed, and that means they are not working against their will and they are not being forced to do so. It's a thorny debate and we do not really have resolutions, but the point remains that roboethics will become more and more a subject for post-human philosophical interventions in the near future. Thank you.